Price is king, it's where we belong. Stay with the dream, don't lose your way. Right way's the fire that'll light the day. Keep it simple, let the moment arrive. 3-8 trap keeps the hope alive. Hold on tight till the signal's near. Right way's the trail, we're breaking through fear.
Good morning, fellow traders. This is Doug Campbell with Right Way Options, and this is the morning market prep video for August 22nd, 2025. Well, I hope everyone got a good rest and ready for Friday. How about that? We made it to Friday. Let's take a look at what happened overnight. First off, if we take a look at Asian markets, we've got Australian markets a little bit lower last night after hitting new record highs yesterday, down 51.70 or 0.57% lower. Hong Kong had a really good day, up 234.53. 0.93% higher. South Korea up 26.99, 0.86% higher. The Nikkei up 23.12 or 0.05% higher. We've got India sharply lower by 213.65 or 0.85% lower. And then Shanghai had a good day, up 54.77 or 1.45% higher. So pretty good, a little bit of mix, but pretty good over there in Asian markets. If we take a look at European markets here this morning, a little bit of mix as well, and rather subdued. We've got the DAX up $17.79 or 0.08%. The FTSE down $2.85, 0.03%, and the CAC moving higher by $12.75 or 0.16%. Let's take a look at what we have going on here in the U.S. We're getting a nice little pop here this morning, heading into Jerome Powell's Jackson Hole speech. We've got Dow futures at this very moment up $160 even, and they've have fluctuated around quite a bit already this morning. The S&P 500 futures up $16.75, and the NASDAQ futures up $50 here this morning even. So how about we take a look at some of the other markets here today. First off, if we take a look at our bonds, a little bit of flat, I would say, in the bonds. They moved up yesterday and they're kind of holding in there this morning. We've got the 2-year bonds at 3.79%. Our 10-year bonds moved up yesterday to 4.33%. The 30-year moved up to 4.92%. We're still kind of holding right in there on those numbers. Now, if we take a look at our U.S. dollar here this morning, continuing to move higher after a nice move. We had a slow start yesterday, but a nice move to the upside here in the dollar. So let's keep an eye on that as we move back up. I think what's going to be critical is how it addresses this resistance right across here. Can we punch on through? Because I do have that concern. If we can't punch on through, we could use this little area as a little topping pattern and see that push back into here, and we might go lower at that point. So let's hope we can kind of hold in there, see that dollar strengthen on the day. But it's holding up nicely this morning. Dow, let's see, not Dow, but the dollar futures are up 11 cents here this morning. How's that affecting precious metals? Well, if we take a look at gold, gold's moving a little bit lower, following through with some selling yesterday from the pop-up. Still in this consolidation area here of the gold or GLD, and you can see we've got some support underneath that. But at the moment, gold down $8.60 an ounce, $3,373 an ounce, and silver is also moving a bit lower here today, but it was moving higher at the close yesterday. Silver down 9 cents at 37.98 an ounce here in the futures. Copper this morning, well, copper been floating around here in this consolidation as well, trying to move slightly higher here this morning, so keep an eye on copper, just up ever so slightly. If we take a look at platinum this morning, well, platinum moving a little bit lower. Had a good day yesterday, popping up to test this resistance. Still in this long consolidation in here, down 17.40 an ounce so far this morning. And palladium, after a pop and drop yesterday in here, we pushed up, pulled back, still holding on to that support, still in a downtrend and bearish pattern, but up this morning $1.80 an ounce. If we take a look at cryptos, boy, cryptos had a rough day yesterday. We saw Bitcoin break down through this support area here in the chart. And this morning, trying to gap back up and get a little bit going, but we're already pulling back here this morning. We've been up over $600 a coin here this morning. Right now, up $437.65 a coin, but you can see struggling in there with that resistance. Ether is having a pretty good morning and continues to be in a very, very bullish pattern, up 1.77% or 94 an ounce here, or a coin here this morning. So watch that. What's interesting is a lot of the other cryptos are just a slightly bit lower here today. So watch those carefully. Then if we take a look at what's going on in the oil sector here, USO here on oil, we've got oil just a little bit lower here this morning. We've had a couple of really nice days rally. Remember, we had that petroleum status number that was weak, and that's helped push those oil prices back up just a little bit. But right now we're down 7 cents a barrel at 63.45 a barrel. If we take a look at Brent crude, Brent's coming in around 63 a barrel. Natural gas, that was also popping up yesterday. Well, it's not holding, down almost 5 cents this morning on natural gas. So continuing to show lots of weakness. And again, we're down here at the lows, all-time lows of the UNG ETF, as we see that weakness across natural gas. So what does all that mean for the day? Well, how about we settle in? Let's buckle up. Let's get ready for the Friday edition of the Morning Market Prep video. Good morning once again, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. I very much appreciate it. Let's take a look at these index charts, trying to figure out how we might want to approach the market for today. And remember, we want to look at these charts for what they are, not for what we want them to be, and look at all of the potentials that could occur in here. Well, as I told everybody in Right Way Options yesterday, as we came into the close yesterday, that pretty much anything was possible here this morning. We've got a big speech here today from Jerome Powell, and not much else to worry about here on the earnings or economic calendar here today. We'll look at that in just a second. But when we look at the diamonds in here, that hammering pattern yesterday on the diamonds, there really is no way you can look at this chart in any bearish light. And if we can get some bullishness moving today, well, I think there is a possibility, and particularly on a Friday. We like to rally on Fridays, at least we have for months now. We've been rallying mostly on Fridays. So watch that carefully with a little push, a little bullishness in the market. Jerome Powell hints of rate cuts or something in his speech, which might be unlikely, but watch that carefully. We might stretch right on up there, finally break out confidently above this all-time high in the diamonds, and potentially hold it. Very, very bullish pattern here. So if we pop on through here, then there's blue sky above in the diamonds. Now, if the bears were to have anything to say, because like I said, I think anything is possible. I said up, down, or sideways last night as we came into the close, and I do still think that's possible. We could whip around here in the market. If the bears were to have anything to say, maybe a retest of this support area here, breaking down below there, well, it's pretty easy to see we might come down in here and test that area of support. Beyond that, we're probably filling the gap here in that diamonds chart, so watch that carefully. But I'm going to continue to repeat this. I don't think we're really going to engage the bears or get anything in major fear pushing up unless we break this area of price support in the chart. Now, let's take a look on our moving averages in here. That would be a pullback into that 34 EMA. If we got down into there, then I think that 50-day moving average could pull pretty heavily on the Dow. Looking at the SPY, SPY trying to bounce up here today, but obviously a little bit weaker than what we've been used to here in the tech sector. We continue to see some of that little bit of rotation in there on the tech sector. Folks kind of bailing out. There was a story on CNBC yesterday that retailers are rotating out of big tech. We'll see if that continues here today. But as we look at this chart, if the bears were to have anything to say here today, well, I would say a press back here to test this area of price support once again would not be a surprise and wouldn't cause any additional damage at all in the chart. It would be if we break that area. If we were to break that area, come down into this area of the chart, we could still grab onto that support and bounce and really not create any major problems here. However, if we were to break below that, that's where I think we're going to raise some concern in the market, and then there's going to be that situation here where we're going to be testing that 34 EMA and maybe even moving through that, and that could draw us down toward that 50-day. Now, if the bulls have anything to say, no particular reason that they can't push right back up through this resistance in the chart. And if we get back up through there, that next resistance, I think, is right in here. We can press right on up into that area before pushing on through to retest the highs here in the SPY. If we look at our QQQ, well, little QQQ, probably the roughest market at the moment. Pretty strong pullback in there in the chart. If the bulls can continue to follow through here this morning with this pre-market pop that they're working, let's see if we can break through this area of the chart. And if we can get through that, then I think we're going to start progressing back up in here. See if we can get through that level right in there and then stretch right on up toward this resistance high in the chart. And all of that looks like a possibility. If we get some really good data, can't see why that would be something impossible to do. If the bears, however, were to get some of that data in here, well, the possibility that we could retest down into this area looks very likely. And beyond that point, this is where real concern would come in. If we were to drop below here in the QQQ, then I think this low over here could be tested and maybe even taken out if we were to push on through to the downside here. And the reason I say that is if we take a look at our moving averages, notice that we're struggling in here to hold on to our 34 EMA, that 8 exponential has been dropping in here. And if we were to push on through here on some bad data today, I really see that possibility that this 50-day moving average could pull pretty hard on the QQQ. So watch that pretty carefully. Our IWM, however, held up really nicely. The only index that made it into the green before the close yesterday, bullish engulfing candle, holding nicely on this price area of support. So if it follows through this morning as we're doing right now in the pre-market, pushing up into this resistance was where I would be watching to see if we can break through. If we can break through that up there, then I'm going to be looking up in here. Remember, this line comes all the way back over here to all this resistance way back over here, early 2025. So watch that area testing there, and if that were to break, then I think we're back up here testing this recent high in IWM. If the bears were to push back, probably not nearly as much worry here in IWM at the moment, because we've created this really nice area of price support in here. So push back in here, maybe test that area of price support. Looks like would be pretty solid in there. But if that were to crack, I'm going to say right in through there, we still have a pretty solid area of price support as well. It would be breaking down below this area of price support that I think would raise some concern here in IWM, and would be kind of a nasty little reversal from what we saw yesterday. Let's take a look at our VIX here in the market. Our VIX yesterday, we saw that little bit of fear pushing back up here, but really no particular worries overall. We pushed up, we retested this resistance up in here, faded back. We have this little tiny upside trend going on, and yes, we did break this recent downtrend in here, but remember, what we need, if the bears are really going to do something in here, we need to prove a hold in a higher low. And so far, we've just been kind of inching up here with a lot of uncertainty here in the market and not a lot of momentum on the bearish side. So if the bulls, with this pop here this morning, if the bulls can continue to push that through here today, then I see every reason to believe that we could be back down in here testing this area of price support, and a really good move here today could break us back down toward this area of the chart here in the VIX. If the bears were to come into any kind of information that really engages them, then a push up through this area could be important. Breaking through this area of resistance, moving back up through 17 handles here in the VIX, we might stretch right up into some of these next areas of price resistance. So watch that carefully. And I think it could happen quickly. I think we've got big point moves possible in either direction today, depending on how we react to that data in Jerome Powell's speech. Let's take a look at our VIX here today. Or excuse me, our T2122. Our T2122, the 4-week new high, new low ratio here in T2122. As you can see, yesterday we still pushed higher, even though we were down in the end of the day on 3 indexes. We managed to push this just a little bit higher. 4-week new highs, just a few more making that move. There is nothing bearish here in that chart at the moment. If the bulls find inspiration, and obviously they're doing that in the pre-market, I think there's every reason to believe we could push this right back up here and be up here toward that bearish reversal zone, and even in that bearish reversal zone if we get some bullishness coming into the market. So watch that carefully. Now, if the bears were to have anything to say, then I think a push down here in that chart could be possible. And again, I'm suggesting big point moves are possible today, so be careful here. We've opened up a pretty good space for those bears to push. Now, if we take a look at our T2108, percentage of stocks above the 40-day yesterday, although T2122 squeaked out a push to the upside, well, our percentage of stocks above the 40-day moving average was flat to just slightly lower. I don't see any major problem here. We did just slightly give up that 50% area in the chart, but with the pop up here today in the pre-market, I think we could easily be pushing up here into that 55 zone of T2108, and maybe even pushing right on through up here to the 60% here in the chart. Now remember, this area up in here around 70%, we really start reaching kind of a frothy area of the market. So if we push back up into here, then we might have a little bit more worry of some pushback resistance. You can see last couple of years we push up in here, and that's kind of the end of the upside run. So watch that carefully. If the bears were to have anything to say today, and we whip down in some data, of course we've got some good areas of price support in here as well. I would say there's a little bit right in there around that 45%. You can look across here, we've got some support area in there, and if we push on through, maybe down here toward 40, it would be pushing through both of these levels and start heading back toward that 30% area that would probably raise that major concern in the market. We'd see some fear starting to perk up. T2107, just a little tiny pullback in here, and I would say T2107 has been holding in a lot stronger. Percentage of stocks above the 200-day. You'll notice in here we're still holding that upside trend. I don't see any major worries here on that. Any pullback in here, we've got some really good areas of price support in here around 45%, and good price support down here around 40 if the bears were to really get going. If the bulls can find some good inspiration here today, there certainly are in the pre-market, pumping it pretty hard, we could easily pop through this resistance 50%. We've been struggling to get up through there. Maybe today is the day we pop on through and have about 50% of our stocks above that 200-day moving average, and even stretching on higher here to see if we can get up into the mid-50s here with all this congestion in our way, however, but watch that carefully. Our T2101, I mentioned to folks in RWO yesterday during the day, even as the bears were pushing, we saw breadth declining. Bears were trying to get something done, but they just didn't have the energy. They didn't have the breadth to really hold on in there, and that breadth continues to decline. But what we want to see today, if the bulls are supposed to be taken over, and if they're going to take over, we need to see that breadth increasing on that bullish wave, because the same thing is true here. If we rally without breadth, that's going to be a problem, and we can whipsaw this right back down on any data. So watch that carefully in T2101. Let's take a look at our economic calendar here for today. And our economic calendar, well, anything is possible today when we take a look at what we've got going on here today. Obviously, Jackson Hole, we'll have to watch that carefully here today with Jerome Powell's speech at 10 a.m. Eastern. So just kind of keep that in mind. If we've got Collins that will be speaking today, and then a Baker Hughes rig count, but that's about it. Not too much going on in there. So everybody's going to be, the world will probably be focused on what Jerome Powell has to say here in Jackson Hole, with all the pressure that is been brought to that FOMC committee. So watch that carefully here today. Then if we take a look at our earnings calendar here today, well, I didn't even prepare an earnings sheet here today because, by golly, there just isn't a whole lot in here to worry about. If we take a look at earnings today, we're going to get earnings from BJ's Wholesale. Looks like we had quite a little push down and push right back up in BJ's here this morning, but kind of flat here at the moment on that report. So watch that carefully here today. I don't see any major problem in here right now. Data that I've got says that they beat on the top line, so no major problems there. We've got Buckle, BKE, that will be reporting as we continue that retail theme here lately. That's trying to push a little bit higher here in the pre-market, but the bid-ask spread is so wide here, I would say it hasn't reported earnings. So watch that carefully today as that reports. The only other one that would be just somewhat notable is GFI. Goldfields, that's been holding in this bullish pattern, but not exactly a market moving report in here, so keep an eye on that. And that's it for the day. There's no other reports here today to be concerned about on the earnings calendar. So really it is going to be Jerome Powell determining how things go today. So watch that carefully. Let's take a look at a few stocks that could be setting up for today. But before we do that, everyone, if you could do me that quick favor, if this is the first time you've seen these videos, if you could please click that subscribe button on YouTube and also click that bell icon when it pops up so you'll be notified every time I post a video. And if you find these videos to be useful or helpful, if you could do me that favor, click that thumbs up button, leave a brief comment. That helps the channel to continue to grow. Thank you very much for everyone who does take the time to do that. I do truly, truly appreciate it. Let's take a look at a few of these stocks. Remember, everyone, these are not recommendations to buy or sell any security. Do your own due diligence. Be very careful in this market. And as I said, I think anything is possible today. Big point moves are possible depending on how the market reacts to Jerome. It could be both up, down, could easily be sideways as well. So make sure you have a plan to protect yourself. And once again, stay with the upside trend, but be really careful about chasing stocks that are already extended in this market. First off, let's take a look at a few of the drug manufacturers out there. They've been trying to come back around. If you look at Amgen here, breaking back through this downtrend, and we're trying to hold in here for a higher low. So if those bulls can kind of hang on in here, if I were to draw a trend line right up through here, you can see a little bit of hold in here could hold that higher low, and we might move on through that resistance in the chart. And the reason that's important is I'm seeing some moves here in a lot of these drug makers here. Take a look at Merck making a nice little breakthrough here. If we can pop through this resistance, I'd start keeping an eye on Merck. Been coming up nicely here. Now, Bristol Myers also coming up through that basing pattern, breaking through some resistance, pushing up, nice little resting consolidation in here. If those bulls can get going here today, I would look for that opportunity. We could start breaking through this area up here and kind of complete this bottoming pattern here in Bristol Myers. Keep an eye on that. And then, of course, Johnson & Johnson has been looking very, very good in here, continuing that push to the upside, just really stretching in here. A little rest or pullback might set up an opportunity there. And I do think it would need that. I wouldn't want to chase J&J here, but something to pay attention to. Now, I know we're not technically we're not a drug maker here in Procter & Gamble, but Procter & Gamble holding some nice patterns in here, breaking through this downtrend. This is that defensive sector that I've been saying has been catching some of this rotation out of tech. And you can see we held that first higher low in here, building that first trap long situation in that chart, popped through this next level of resistance, and now resting back in here. I would just watch this carefully for that next opportunity that could push on through to the upside in P&G. Looking pretty good overall. So keep an eye on that. If we take a look at some other areas of the market, boy, I got to tell you, Nike continues to try to stretch up here. We've been banging our head against this resistance up here, looking like it wants to break out. Our lows in this pattern are higher lows, and we're still trying to hold on to this higher low. If we can find that energy in the market, maybe we can get just enough push to pop us out of that big resistance here in the chart. We could start seeing Nike moving back to the upside. And certainly want to keep an eye on Home Depot, although Home Depot, a little pop and drop on its earnings report in here, pulling back. There's nothing wrong with this chart. If you'll notice, we're just resting back. We're holding on to this price support here in the chart. All we need is that little bit of bullish push here in the market, and I think we might see Home Depot stretch on higher here. And the same is true for Lowe's. Lowe's popping up hard on its earnings, but pulling back. Nice little resting pattern in here. You can see as we push into this chart, we slammed into this area of price resistance and pulled back. But as long as we can hold some support, I think, in this area of the chart, I think there's still that opportunity. We might see Lowe's move on higher here. Now, if we take a look at XLB, I've been mentioning XLB the last few days. XLB in that material sector. A lot of this is that builder sector here, materials and home building, those kind of things. They're showing a lot of strength here in XLB, holding this nice little rest and consolidation. And if we can get some bullishness coming into the market, I see every reason we might start pushing back up and see if we can break out of this high here in XLB. Worth paying attention to at least. If we take a look at XLY, those consumer discretionaries, we pushed up through this resistance and faded back here the last couple of days, but hammered in here yesterday. So if we can get some follow through bullishness in here today, I would look for that opportunity for this to maybe push on through here to the upside, and we might see that little bit of a bull getting going there on those discretionaries. So watch that carefully in here. Been showing a lot of improvement overall in those charts. Speaking of that, kind of those consumer cyclicals and things like that in here, take a look at Kohl's. Kohl's popped hard here. It became kind of a meme stock there for a bit, pulled back, finding the trend, held in there on the trend, crossing back up through resistance. This rest back toward the trend. I'd be watching Kohl's for that next opportunity to the upside. Keep a close eye on that. When we look at big tech, Google is looking pretty good here and trying to set up. Google did pull back below that trend just ever so slightly, but you can see as we're trying to push up here, there is that big tech draw in here, and that possible push that this could break right on through to the upside. I'd keep an eye there on Google. I don't see the same thing here in Apple in any way, shape, or form, but we could start moving back up in that chart if we got that big push here today. So watch on some of those big techs. I do, however, really still like the way, even though we had a bearish candle here yesterday on STX, we didn't break any of this support in here. So if the bulls can continue to show that energy and that push, I think we could follow through here on STX to the upside. Certainly worth paying attention to in that chart. Other places here, we've got ITB. ITB, you can see, has just been moving up methodically here in this trend. I had a price alert on this chart right there. Pushed on through, and you can see holding in that trending pattern, just looking for that next opportunity in here that might stretch on up to the upside. Worth keeping a pretty close eye on. And Mickey D's. Now, I've got a little bit of bias in here. I did pick up a little bit of Mickey D's. Mickey D's moving to the upside here. Bought down in here. Nice little profit in the trade. We are approaching a major area of resistance. Now in Mickey D's, we probably will rest in here, but what I'm looking for is that little resting pattern that may build that energy to break through these highs up here. If we can break through, there's a lot of stories out there about their new products that seem to be selling really, really well. So watch that carefully here in Mickey D's if that can get going to the upside. I'd watch that. And I know it's not a favored stock here right now, but Intel for a recovery play might be something interesting in here to be watching. We know that the government may be making some kind of partnership in here or something to have access to the CHIPS Act, but watch that carefully in here on that push. If we can break through, we did break through this resistance and we've pulled back, kind of hammering in there yesterday. A little bit of bullishness might give that energy in here and set us up a pattern. I would look at this probably more in a longer term time frame, however, to see if we can break up out of all of this congestion here on this in NVIDIA and start pushing back up. Now, I don't think NVIDIA is ever going to become and the Intel is going to become the next NVIDIA in any way, shape, or form, but looking for that to maybe get some improvement coming into that chart. So maybe worth keeping an eye on if you like some of those longer term trades. So with that, everyone, hey, I want to wish you all a fantastic day. I want to wish you great results in your trading. Thanks so much for being here. Thanks so much for supporting the channel with your comments and leaving even an emoji accounts. Hey, I wish you all a wonderful weekend with your family, and I will see you right back here bright and early Monday morning. Y'all take care. Be safe. I wish you all the best.
Black and white candles, my stars in the dark. Price is my king, got that fire and spark. Rideways my ranch on the trader's trail. Trading with heart where the profits prevail.